Mr. Speaker, when we debated the Appropriation Bill 2018-2017, the budget address of the Prime Minister and Minister of Finance then was dubbed "Putting People First in the Pursuit of Sustainable Development." So this past year, we would all agree that indeed the programs, the policies, the capital projects pursued by this government were truly focused on putting people first. The people, the grassroots of our society, have been greatly impacted by some project, program, or policy of this government over the past year. This year's Appropriation Bill 2019-2018, with a budget address that is dubbed "Sustaining Growth and Prosperity," continues in that same vein, Mr. Speaker. And so, having perused the estimates for 2019, seeing the people-focused programs for 2019, and hearing the presentations of the members before me on the plans for their respective ministries for 2019, which all directly touches the people, I rise in full support of the Appropriation Bill 2019-2018 and make my contribution to this debate. Mr. Speaker, I wish to focus my contribution to the areas that I believe most touches and impacts the individual man, the woman, the child, who do their part to make meaningful contributions and for whom support should be given in return. Mr. Speaker, of paramount importance to any country is the health of the people. We all know the very true statement, the health of a nation is the wealth of the nation. Mr. Speaker, it is evident from the draft estimates presented by the Ministry of Health and the justification of the spending provided within the estimates and complemented by the presentation of the Minister of State with Responsibility, the Honorable Wendy Phipps, that the ministry and government by extension pays keen attention to the health statistics of this country, the trends, Mr. Speaker, and are putting in place and ensuring measures that will ensure that the people of this country have access to adequate and reliable health services. Mr. Speaker, a lot is said about this ministry daily. However, I would like to go on record and state that we now have a Minister of Health who concerns herself with the statistics. She took her time in her presentation and presented us with statistics and data, the health trends that have been noted. She then used that as a backdrop to present the policies, plans, and actions that will be placed in motion to reverse some of the higher health risk areas identified. Mr. Speaker, because she takes her time to look at the trends and the statistics and the data as it pertains to health, we are confident that those would be translated into an action plan for 2019 that would justify the spending by the ministry for 2019. Mr. Speaker, case in point, for some time we have heard the same Minister of State speak to the high number of deaths within the Federation that are attributed to non-communicable diseases. In the budget estimates for health, we see that 83% of deaths in the Federation are attributed to NCDs. We also note from the estimate that NCDs are also a leading cause of disabilities among our citizens. We have been warned of the challenges of NCDs. We have also begun to see adverse effects to our socio-economic development. Our labor force is being affected as persons take more sick leave and must stay home to care for their chronically ill family members, Mr. Speaker. Remember, the health of a nation is the wealth of the nation, which means that armed with the information provided, drastic measures must be taken to turn around this trend. Mr. Speaker, the government through the Ministry of Health have shown commitment to reversing the NCD numbers. The government understands that the health of the people is of paramount importance, and as such, investments are being made to have available to the people of St. Kitts and Nevis a speech therapist and a cardiologist right here in St. Kitts and Nevis. We understand that we should not have to lose our most valuable resource, our people, to cardiac attacks. We understand that even if persons do suffer from cardiac attacks, such as strokes, that they should have the assistance they need right here on island to have speech therapy if needed. This government understands the importance and the value of investing in the health of our people. This government understands that we must put people first in all that we do. Mr. Speaker, I am pleased to note that the Ministry of Health understands that their response to health isn't just in services provided by medical teams, doctors, nurses, etc. They also understand the importance of educating individuals on preventative as well as personal healthcare practices. I am therefore pleased to note that as part of their 2019 budget, they have included the acceleration and intensification of the health promotion unit's information programs. The unit reaches the people where they are, Mr. Speaker, in their communities, to the health centers, and through joining efforts with the community organizations, as well as within the schools, Mr. Speaker, educating our young people about proper health care as early as possible so that we can see better health choices, be it dietary or increased physical activity. Mr. Speaker, this is an example of putting people first, and this effort would certainly guarantee that we are able to sustain our growth and prosperity.
At 2%?
Mr. Speaker, the investments in the health of our nation does not stop there. Also of great importance is the physical infrastructure which houses our health services. This past year, we have noted major investments to the construction of a brand new health center in Tabernacle, a community, Mr. Speaker, a whole cross-section of our society, of persons within our society who was limited with the healthcare services, will soon enough be able to finally feel a sense of ease as it pertains to accessing healthcare services within their community. And for that, we must commend this government for again investing in the health of the nation, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in 2019, we will see even more investments in the health of the nation. The capital projects earmarked for 2019 will be of great benefit to the health care of the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. The first being the initial allocation of some 1.5 million, which will be allocated to the establishment of a cardiac catheterization laboratory, which will allow for better response to cardiac cases. Remember, we said cardiac attack and NCDs are a huge problem. So this is major, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this means that persons would not have to travel to Barbados or Trinidad or even the US to undergo life-saving procedures such as stent placement and balloon angioplasty. That will be done right here in the Federation, and thus allowing for greater cost savings for individuals when requiring such services. But Mr. Speaker, the people-focused capital projects doesn't end there, Mr. Speaker. The community of St. Peter's, which outgrew the tiny health center many, many years ago, Mr. Speaker, would in 2019 see the start of their brand new health center. For this, the government is investing in the people of St. Peter's some $2.5 million. $2.5 million well spent on the people of the community. Putting people first. The people have a need. The ministry identified the need and have decided to make an investment to meet the need of the people. Mr. Speaker, also of value to note is the fact that the ministry also finds it of great importance to invest in the interconnectivity of all institutional-based and community-based health services. I don't know if persons truly understand the significance of this investment and the impact that it will make for the quality of service provided by these institutional community-based health services. Mr. Speaker, this simply means that a person who lives in Bastille has some form of health emergency which could render them incapable of speaking or expressing their issue. Let's say this person has a history of cardiac problems, and this information is stored in the health information system that is coming on stream. This person experienced some form of health complication, let's say Tabernacle, and they rush to the brand new Tabernacle Health Center. The interconnectivity then means that right there in Tabernacle, this person's health information can be accessed with all of their health history in an instant so that the right care can be provided. Mr. Speaker, a foundation, let me repeat that, Mr. Speaker, a foundation is being laid so that the health services can be modernized, thus ensuring that the people of this country are provided with the best and the most efficient health services. A foundation, Mr. Speaker, upon which many things can happen, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, beyond the noise that we constantly hear about health, there is so much happening behind the scenes in health. And in the budget for 2019, we see people-focused, revamping efforts of the Ministry of Health that would ensure sustained growth and prosperity for the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. Mr. Speaker, we must give kudos to the Minister of State and the ministers responsible for health, because indeed they are working hard to ensure that what they inherited in health is cleaned up, revamped and fixed, so that whoever come after them, whenever they do come, has a solid foundation of health services upon which they can then do their work. Mr. Speaker, the ministry continues to identify and respond to its challenges head-on as they adhere to the motto of people first, quality always. And that, Mr. Speaker, must be commended. The ministry understands that the health of the nation is indeed the wealth of the nation. And they are making investment in the health of the people of the nation, so that, as I said before, we can ensure that we continue sustained growth and prosperity. Honorable member, I think we should allow to be able to hear of all of the magnificent work that is happening in health, so that people could understand and get a clearer understanding of the fact that this was where health was, and thanks to the new Minister of State and yourself, this is where health is heading. Foundation set, foundation made, health moving forward, the country moving forward, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the people-focused social development-driven agenda is not just confined to the Ministry of Health. A perusal of the draft estimates for 2019 for all ministries shows in some shape or form a focus on the people and a strong focus on social development initiatives. Mr. Speaker, within the budget for the Ministry of Community Development, Gender Affairs and Social Services, we continue to see great emphasis being placed on ensuring that St. Kitts and Nevis would continue towards meeting the UN 2030 agenda on sustainable development goals, more specifically Goal 1, which speaks to the eradication of extreme poverty. Wow. To this end, Mr. Speaker, the ministry will be embarking in 2019 on the most talked about initiative, the one that everybody is waiting for, the promised 500 per month household assistance program for households with a combined income of less than 3,000. But Mr. Speaker, what is most notable with this program, and I want everybody to listen carefully, because what is most notable about this program is the fact that this program is not intended to just give households this $500 and leave them. Instead, what we note in the build out of this program is that the recipients will be supported throughout the program. The ministry is telling you, the ministry is putting in place a case management system which would monitor the socio-economic status and progress of the recipients, and wherever possible would prepare recipients for securing good paying jobs through education and skill training. Mr. Speaker, we therefore see here that the program isn't just concerned about giving households $500 and expect them to continue to live as is. Instead, it provides households with the immediate relief of the $500, but also provides the individuals of that household with education and training tools that would empower the individuals and see them being able to graduate out of the program and become more self-reliant. It's right there in the estimates, Mr. Speaker, fully explained by the minister. And if we just peruse those estimates, you'll be able to see all of this information, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the benefits of this program also extends beyond the households being supported, as this program will also allow the Federation to realize improvements in our Human Development Index, Mr. Speaker, an index which is closely monitored by the international agencies such as the United Nations Development Program and the Caribbean Development Bank. Mr. Speaker, the social support being offered is not just financial. When we speak of helping to improve the lives of our people, and most importantly, the most vulnerable among us, we are also speaking about soft skills training and interpersonal relational training as well. As such, within this ministry, we also see the work being done to protect and support at-risk children and their families. Monies have therefore been set aside to ensure that the ministry can comfortably assign social workers to families that are considered to be the most at risk for abuse and neglect of children. These social workers will be working closely with these families, teaching them parenting strategies and promoting healthy relationships between parent and child. Mr. Speaker, this is a commitment to enhancing the grassroots levels of our societies, reaching out to families and creating healthy family structures, which in turn will make positive impact on society as a whole. And it would also have the trickling effect of helping to reduce the possibilities of our children choosing a life of crime or being enticed by such a life, by the simple fact that the family unit is stronger, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, while we are speaking about the support to families, the ministry is also expected to introduce an Amber Alert system in 2019. Mr. Speaker, I know many of us see these alerts in different countries. Whenever there's a case of a missing child, in an instance you see the child's photos and descriptions. You're even told of what the child would have been wearing the last time they were seen. And that makes it easier for persons to be able to identify that missing child. In our federation, we have noted an increase in the number of missing children. And so noting that trend, the ministry is putting in place an Amber Alert system right here in St. Kitts and Nevis to be able to assist families and law enforcement to locate a missing child through the help of the general public. This, Mr. Speaker, would bring a sense of comfort to the families affected, knowing that the entire country will be working with law enforcement to locate the missing child. Mr. Speaker, the budget for this ministry also speaks to reaching out to persons where they are, in their communities, close to home. As such, the ministry has budgeted to continue its efforts in improving community access to government services as it rolls out its services within community centers around the island. Mr. Speaker, I know for sure that when I speak to people on a daily basis, they have no idea the amount of services that are provided by the government by social services, and they don't know how to access them. They don't know who to talk to or where to go. And so being able to have this right within their communities makes easy access for the general public, and to ensure that the persons who need it most are truly being able to access. No longer will we be in a situation where sometime way after the fact you heard that there was once a program that provided $1,500 and that 21 families benefited from. Instead, it will be accessible to you right here in your country. And so therefore, Mr. Speaker, this is definitely a welcome change. We will see this year community development officers and probation child care officers being stationed within the various community centers. This will allow the ministry to be in a better position to understand the community-based, family, and individual challenges, as these officers would be stationed where the people who need their services live, and thus allowing them to see the community dynamics firsthand so as to be better able to fashion programs that would touch the specific communities. This is a more meaningful approach that creates a more targeted approach for touching and transforming the lives of the most vulnerable among us. Mr. Speaker, I would like to turn my attention to education. Because, Mr. Speaker, there's so much development taking place in St. Kitts and Nevis. We're developing in leap and bounds now. And our people must be able to position themselves to take advantage of the opportunities that comes with this development. Mr. Speaker, one of the ways in which we ensure that our people are positioned to take advantage of these opportunities is through education and training. Mr. Speaker, I really don't have to touch much on the ultra-modern, top-class Bastia High School, which will be delivering high-quality standard education to our people for the 21st century and beyond, because I think the Minister and Deputy Prime Minister would have touched that. But there are some areas, some things, some minute details that I think is important. And so when we look through the budget address, we would realize that for the Bastia High School, what are we going to see? 32 classrooms, a music center with 2 dedicated music rooms, at least 4 science labs, 6 computer labs, a dedicated lecture room, 5 dedicated vocational workshops, teacher lounges, counseling and health services facilities, an auditorium with seating capacity for a minimum of 1,200 persons. Well, Mr. Speaker, you know what I mean? That means that Bastia High School could actually rent out that facility for those dance productions and the other Christmas programs and the like, and therefore that's some revenue that will be able to come into the Bastia High School, which could then be used for their own maintenance and for other programs of anything else that the Bastia High School wish to have. So that's visionary, Mr. Speaker, because I know so many persons ask for some type of quality auditorium so that they could have many different things. The one that we have is Central Bank, and now here it is. Bastia High School, our own Bastia High School, would have a capacity seating of 1,200, and I can guarantee you it probably will be the most modern auditorium that we will have on island. And so, Mr. Speaker, there's not much more that I can say about this, because again, I think the Minister clearly explained and expressed everything that needs to be expressed about the Bastia High School, is positioned on the aquifer and every detail of it. So no need to go there again. Instead, Mr. Speaker, I would like to point out the fact that in this people-focused budget for education for 2019, it would allow the Ministry of Education to continue on its path of professionalizing the teaching force, and thus ensuring that all citizens and residents alike will be provided with the tools and opportunities to access quality education in keeping with meeting our target of Sustainable Development Goal number 4, quality education by 2030. Mr. Speaker, the ministry intends to meet this goal by paying special attention to the expansion of special education services, the introduction of scholarships for TVET, and one area that makes me smell the most, maybe because I'm being biased, the integration of ICT technologies in schools. Mr. Speaker, if we are to achieve higher education, then our teachers must achieve and maintain a higher level of training as well. The ministry understands that, and as such entered into partnership with the University of the West Indies School of Education, Cave Hill campus, to deliver a master's degrees program right here at CFBC that would allow teachers and education administrators to access this level of education right here in St. Kitts and Nevis. The ministry understands the importance of having the best and the highest quality of educators, and they also see value in ensuring that our teachers are fully trained and qualified, and so they have made this offering available right here. But Mr. Speaker, they are not only offering this master's education here at CFBC that will reduce cost of traveling outside of the Federation. They have also taken a huge step of underwriting 50% of the cost of each course participant. They are proving their commitment to the continued upward mobility of the quality of education and investing heavily so that the people of our country continue to benefit. Mr. Speaker, our teachers will be amongst the most qualified anywhere in the world. Our students will therefore benefit from having the top educated professionals aiding in their development through learning. If this, Mr. Speaker, isn't focused and people-driven investments, Mr. Speaker, then what is? This, Mr. Speaker, is commitment to the development of our people to ensure sustained growth and prosperity. Mr. Speaker, the investment and empowerment of our people does not end there within the ministry, because also noted in 2019 estimates for education is the offering of awards and scholarships to teachers and other professionals through the CDB-sponsored TVET Enhancement Project. This project will give opportunities to our people to attain diplomas or bachelor's degrees in TVET-related fields from regional or international universities. Of course, it would be expected for persons to return to the Federation and serve for a minimum of 5 years after receiving those diplomas or degrees, which is minute expectation with the education that they will be receiving. Our people deserve the best, Mr. Speaker, and this government continues to ensure that the best is provided. Mr. Speaker, one of the things that most excites me from the 2019 education budget is the investments being made in ICTs in the schools, especially at the primary level. I am pleased to see the investments being made for the upgrading of the computer labs through the assistance of Ross University. And allow me to just digress for a bit. Here we have public-private partnership, Mr. Speaker. And it is important for us to understand that we do need that public-private partnership, Mr. Speaker, if we are to continue to move forward as a federation. And so, of the example given by Ross University helping the Ministry of Education, I am sure there are plenty other private institutions that will be willing to work hand in hand with the government to see continued progress of our country, Mr. Speaker. And so, Mr. Speaker, this excites me because of the justification used for this investment, which is to teach our students at the primary level computer programming or coding. Mr. Speaker, in my day, many moons ago, I had to wait until I was in high school to get a taste of using computers or being introduced to ICTs. Of course, that is where my love and passion from IT began. But imagine being able to be exposed to not just ICTs, but coding as soon as primary school. Mr. Speaker, much of our daily lives today use and incorporates ICTs. Many of the devices that we use are powered by applications and softwares. These applications and softwares developed by programmers, persons who write code. With that in mind, can you imagine the potential being unleashed when we invest in teaching coding from primary level? Mr. Speaker, we will begin to see persons at very early stages becoming gurus in the field. And who knows, Mr. Speaker, we probably would have the next greatest software application that touches the lives of many the world over even, being developed right here in St. Kitts, with the potential of it being developed by a student who have not even finished high school yet. That, Mr. Speaker, is a worthwhile investment that would reap great benefits for the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. If you ask me, without being biased, I would say that this is one of the best investments that we can make, but that's just my IT bias. Mr. Speaker, before I leave education, it is important to note a very significant milestone for the ministry when they opened the St. Kitts Autism Services Center. Mr. Speaker, this shows that the ministry is aware of and is paying keen attention to the different learning approaches required for our children. Mr. Speaker, centers such as this ensures that our children who learn differently are identified early so that teaching and learning geared towards their special needs is achieved. Mr. Speaker, this is indeed historic. Mr. Speaker, it is my hope that this would be just the beginning of our ministry's thrust to ensure that all of our children, no matter the challenge, would receive adequate and quality education. I am hopeful that soon enough, Mr. Speaker, we would see this extended to children who may potentially be candidates of dyslexia and other different learning conditions. And so, Mr. Speaker, our Ministry of Education continues to grow in leap and bounds in its offerings of quality education to the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. And these investments in the people cannot be taken lightly. It is investments such as these in our education that would ensure that we sustain growth and prosperity for all the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. But Mr. Speaker, in order for the government to be able to enhance efficiency and effectiveness of the services offered to the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, and thus be able to ensure sustained growth and prosperity, ICTs must be priority. ICTs have proven to be one of the greatest contributors to efficiency within and across organizations and industries. And the government should and must also benefit from the advantages of having and using ICTs. Mr. Speaker, if the Ministry of Health is to successfully provide health services at the institutional and community-based levels, they must be able to quickly and readily have access to information, be it patient information or information and data on updated care procedures and policies at their fingertips. If the Ministry of Community Development, et al., is to successfully roll out the Poverty Alleviation Program, the community-based service offerings, the National House Registry, then they must be able to access the information and enter and store the relevant information in a timely manner, no matter where the services are being provided. Mr. Speaker, in order for these institutions to be efficient and effective in their offering, then they must have the required ICT infrastructure to support the services and offerings being envisioned. I am therefore pleased to see the investments being made in the ICTs within St. Kitts and Nevis, Mr. Speaker. It must be noted that this year alone, the department began its work in ensuring reliable access to a network infrastructure with the assignment of a unique autonomous system number, which removes the government's reliance on commercial internet service providers in the exchange of data between various networks worldwide, Mr. Speaker. With this type of access, however, there must be data security, especially when we are looking towards the introduction of the National Health Record System and the National Housing Registry, which will be storing valuable data about citizens, which must be protected at all times. To that end, Mr. Speaker, it is welcoming to note that one of the department's initiatives for 2019 is to address threats to the information assets through investments in cybersecurity and the deployment of state-of-the-art software that will protect government's servers, their desktop and devices from viruses, malware, and other attacks. This also underscores the seriousness with which the government takes the Data Protection Act, which was passed through this Honorable House earlier this year. But the ICT investment is not just infrastructural in nature, Mr. Speaker. It must also be noted that the department is showing commitment to development of persons training in ICTs with the introduction of the Pearson View Test Center, which would allow citizens with an appetite for ICTs, such as myself, to access computer-based testing facilities for several internationally recognized certification examinations from some companies as Microsoft and Cisco, right here in St. Kitts and Nevis. Previously, Mr. Speaker, persons would have to find the funding to travel to a testing center regionally or internationally in order to be certified in varying IT areas. Through this investment, the government is eliminating the cost of travel, room and board from the equation, thus making this certification more accessible to all. This is investment in ICTs, Mr. Speaker. This is an investment in the people. Persons who become certified makes themselves more marketable, qualified IT professionals who would be able to offer services not just locally, but now that opens opportunities for them regionally and even internationally. It makes our IT professionals more marketable, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, there have been a plethora of opportunities identified for the people of St. Kitts and Nevis from this year's budget. And throughout the year, we've seen so many opportunities open up in health, in tourism, in agriculture, roads and infrastructure. Because of the government's heavy investment in the varying ministries, opportunities have been opened up for persons to take advantage of. I think in the Ministry of Health, the minister would have identified that we need more lab technicians, areas that persons don't normally tend to specialize in. But here's an opportunity. Our country needs that specialization. So take up that opportunity and go and get the training required so that you can come back to St. Kitts and Nevis and help serve in our health service in our health services to the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. In any area of investment, past or present, the people of this country can identify areas in which they would be able to further uplift and empower themselves. Mr. Speaker, all ministries and all areas across the government continue on the people-focused agenda, which they started in 2015. Mr. Speaker, our country is on the move, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, because our country is on the move, we'll be able to boast that we'll have a second cruise pier. We had both of our National Heroes Park, the brand new East Bus Terminal, the Tabernacle Health Center, a customs annex, the Coast Guard facilities, the renovation work on the runways at RLB, new hotel facilities, sustained high level of business licenses, housings being delivered, our non-established workers, annual honorarium being restored, our health infrastructure being improved, our care center being made cancer center care being available, our mental health care being given more focus, more support to kidney patients, our road network being resurfaced with phase 2 commencing shortly. Mr. Speaker, all of these projects have been done through a transparent bidding process and work being executed primarily by our nationals of St. Kitts and Nevis, and that is important to note. And as I always do, Mr. Speaker, I ask that persons take full advantage of the opportunities being offered. We can't wait for someone from the outside to come in and seize these opportunities, Mr. Speaker. Our government have created the opportunity for the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. And it is the people of St. Kitts and Nevis who should be the ones grabbing at those opportunities. Mr. Speaker, even in tourism, we would have heard the minister with responsibility speak of grassroots programs, focus on developing different skills within the tourism industry. We also heard him speak of all the potential spin-off services that can be offered. it is important that our people arm themselves with the information so they can be the ones who go out and find those spin-off services and products so that they can be the ones that will benefit from those. Mr. Speaker, we heard him speak of discussions they have been having with the cruise ship owners to be able to offer our people the opportunity to be trained so that they can seek employment with the cruise ship, providing jobs for our people. Our options, rather than just a local market, we can now look outside and take advantage of job opportunities as well, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we know of the intentions of the Ministry of Agriculture to increase their offerings in educational programs for farmers and young people. And the minister with responsibility continues to work hard so that we can ensure that the people are equipped with new techniques and approaches that would enhance our food safety through agriculture. It is vital that our people take advantage of these trainings and begin to reimagine their own approach and techniques to agricultural development. Mr. Speaker, I'm not sure if I heard this in this house or if it's my wishful thinking, but maybe we could begin to consider pegging tourism and agriculture as well. It's also an area of opportunity for our people. We can consider farms that allows tourists and locals alike the opportunity to walk through the production process from seedling to a finished product with the option to purchase already processed items. These items can even be offered on the ships, Minister, because I know you said they're looking at ways in which we can get our own products on the ships. So that's an opportunity that can be opened up as well. Our country continues. Our country continues its upward mobility, Mr. Speaker. This government continues to invest and focus on the grassroots of our society, investing heavily in goods, services, projects, and policies that touches the lives of the people. And it's not just the lives of the people of St. Kitts, but also the lives of the people of Nevis. Since 2015, we have seen much better relations between the two islands. And now we don't just say St. Kitts Nevis by word. It is also in action. And so, Mr. Speaker, with all that we have just been presented with all those people-focused opportunities that this government continues to provide, and for which this budget will continue into 2019, Mr. Speaker, I wish to see this people-focused appropriation bill 2019-2018 safe passage through this honorable House, Mr. Speaker. May it please you.